Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a serious deep dive into the cyberpunk species and their biology, specifically Homo technologicus. If humanity suddenly splits down two totally different evolutionary paths after the Great Divergence, we are not just talking about new fashion trends or cultural shifts. We are talking about radical biological speciation. Let's look closely at the pure, unadulterated biology of a species that literally chose the machine. So here's the thing. This species didn't just adapt to their surroundings the way normal animals do. No, they actively treated the biological body as this obsolete chassis that desperately needed a total synthetic overhaul. Homo technologicus is an evolutionary branch defined entirely by tech-driven mutation and synthetic integration in these incredibly toxic megacities. And, this wasn't a choice made in a vacuum. Pushed into these ultra-dense corporate environments with absolute garbage atmospheres, they basically had to hack their own biology just to live to see tomorrow. Let's start by looking at their outer shell, the exterior chassis, and how they adapted to the megacity. To survive living in these ridiculously cramped urban habitats, places just choked with heavy chemical smog and constant glaring artificial light, their immediate physical adaptations created this hyper-alert exterior built purely for survival. Look at this. They developed thick, leathery skin just to resist the chemical smog and the insane UV radiation piercing through compromised atmospheres. Their skin is strikingly pale or sometimes heavily modified with artificial pigments. And their frames, they became leaner, almost skeletal. It's basically a structural optimization for squeezing through and living in deeply cramped vertical architecture. Plus, they evolved these elongated, highly dexterous fingers specifically for the rapid, precise manipulation of microhardware. They are literally physically shaped by their tools. Now, living in this extreme environment forces a really severe sensory trade-off. Natural vision completely degrades after generations of living in low-light, neon-lit corridors. The organic human eye becomes practically useless. So the evolutionary solution? A complete replacement. We're talking neurologically integrated ocular implants. And these aren't just fancy night vision goggles, okay? These implants stream infrared, ultraviolet, and raw digital data directly into the visual cortex. They don't just see the physical world anymore. They see the entire data layer resting right on top of it. Moving inward from the sensory organs, we hit the core, the engine of internal synthetic biology. The biological divergence here is absolutely staggering. It's this messy, brilliant hybrid of organic tissue and active cybernetic life support working in perfect tandem. Just imagine your lungs literally having to evolve into heavy, fibrous filters just to strip ambient heavy metals from the air with every single breath you take. Or your liver. It doesn't even function as a standard organ anymore. It's become a highly specialized industrial chemical plant designed exclusively to neutralize a harsh, entirely artificial diet. Their internal organs have quite literally become industrial machinery. It's wild. So looking at these extreme adaptations brings us to a really fascinating question. What actually happens when technology becomes anatomy? Let's zoom way out to year 10,000. After 10 millennia of absolute isolation in these megacities, pushing these physical and synthetic boundaries generation after generation, what happens when cybernetic modification goes into deep time? Well, the short answer is, they are no longer the same animal. There's this incredible quote from our source material that really hits the nail on the head. Technology is no longer something they wear, it is something they are born with. By year 10,000, their biology relies on cybernetics the way a shellless turtle relies on a rock. It is a vital, non-negotiable component of their anatomy. The line between flesh and machine hasn't just blurred, it has been completely, irreversibly erased from their genetic code. And that brings us to the techno-organic heart. Think about it. If your body is half machine, it needs an entirely different kind of engine to keep it running, right? By year 10,000, their heart is a hybrid muscle lined with biosynthetic fibers. And the primary evolutionary reason for this is actually to prevent sudden cardiac arrest from electromagnetic pulses. EMPs are a constant lethal hazard in their hyper-technological world, so their hearts are quite literally EMP-proof. But the sheer power required for this system is just staggering. To push blood through both organic veins and synthetic microconduits, this techno-heart operates at exactly 2 times the pressure of an ancient human's cardiovascular system. 2 times! That kind of internal pressure would cause a normal human's veins to instantly burst. But for Homo technologicus, that intense, high-pressure flow is just a normal resting heart rate, efficiently distributing oxygen and power throughout their hybridized frame. This deep time evolution also leads to a super interesting phenomenon the source calls digital vestigialization. Because data is fed directly into their neural pathways, the physical vocal cords have completely atrophied. They literally don't need to steep anymore. Instead, they communicate with each other in these totally silent, high-bandwidth bursts of data. And since acoustic sound is basically never used as a primary communication tool, the outer ear pinna, the fleshy flap of the ear, has just flattened completely against the skull. Evolution has mercilessly optimized away absolutely everything they no longer use. To truly understand the extremity of this cyberpunk biology, though, we have to look briefly across the evolutionary divide at their incompatible cousin, Homo verdantis. This branch took the exact opposite route at the Great Divergence. They chose deep biological integration with the Earth rather than cold steel. They actually integrated symbiotic microalgae into their skin for dermal photosynthesis, allowing them to essentially feed on sunlight. They also developed a hyper-efficient, zero-waste digestive system and a completely natural toxin-purging lymphatic system. These hyper-athletic humans turned their internal chemistry into a self-sustaining ecosystem, living in complete sync with the sun's movement. And this really matters because it shows us just how incredibly malleable the human genome can be based purely on the environment we force ourselves to survive in. Which brings us to the inevitable evolutionary friction at year 10,000. Because they evolved under completely opposite pressures for 10 millennia, a meeting at this point would reveal a really tragic, alienating reality. They wouldn't even recognize each other as relatives anymore. The cyberhuman looks at the solar human and sees a wild, unrefined animal, but the solar human looks back and sees an animated, toxic corpse. Their worldviews are completely shattered by each other, and practically speaking, their immune systems are completely incompatible. A solar human would suffocate in the cybercity, while a cyberhuman would lack the biological tools to survive the raw wild. Knowing that one branch became one with the forest and the other became entirely one with the machine, it leaves us with this final, really striking thought. If you were forced to choose a path at the Great Divergence, which chassis would you inhabit to survive the deep future? We've seen the terrifying, incredible lengths Homo technologicus went to just to survive. But looking at both paths, we really have to wonder, which form of extreme speciation holds the true key to human endurance?